All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope it's been a good day. We're going to end this week really strong with a nice update from the Definity team on the ICP roadmap and all the updates. We're going to structure this in a great way to kind of give an idea of the vision and the direction that ICP is heading in. I want to welcome Sam Burry, VP of Engineering for the Definity Foundation, and Bjorn Tachman, Head of Research at Definity. Just two of my favorite people in the world. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Good seeing you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Good to see you.
Yeah, so one of the things I'd love for people to kind of learn more about is, this roadmap. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of effort, and then you see what everyone sees is the end result on a web page, and maybe a few blog posts. But Sam, walk us through kind of like the how this roadmap comes about and how Definity kind of thinks about making decisions on what to prioritize and what not to prioritize.
Yeah, we introduced this new format of a roadmap where we have these kind of themes, and then within each theme, these milestones last spring. And it's never set in stone and not changing. It's actually changing quite a bit. But now, towards the end of last year, we reached a lot of the milestones we set out to achieve last year, which I think our entire team is really proud of. And so it was time to come up with the next milestones. And it's like an endless discussion and debate. And I think it will even continue tomorrow and next week. You might just change stuff. So it's, again, not set in stone, but we just try to get a version out that shows a bit what's ahead of us. And so you're asking, how do we do this? We go back to what is ICP all about, and I guess we will talk more about that in a moment. And then we have all the various activities in these different areas, like the compute platform, AI, etc. I guess we will cover a lot of them today. And so we have a constant discussion: what is most important, what makes sense that the foundation does, what would rather hopefully the community do. And so that is lots of discussions, lots of meetings, and eventually we sort of synthesize these milestones, write that up, and that's the result you see. And I'm very excited. We have published it last week. There was already a lot of good feedback. It's very ambitious what we describe here. It's very broad. But I really enjoy this conversation around this, because it's a great way of actually engaging with the community and hearing back. And I see, of course, also criticism, but also people appreciate what we do. So I think that's the natural way of shaping together where we're headed.
Yeah, just to give credit to your team, you guys deliver on the roadmap. Like you said, we back in May, I think it was, we released the newest version of the roadmap, and now here we are 10 months later, and you're saying actually we've accomplished a lot of what we set out last year, and now we're looking into this year. I'm going to jump over to the vision, but before I do that, the like you were talking about, like the community feedback, and one thing I've not sure if people know, but there's a great forum for people to for developers to come and say, hey, this is the bottleneck I'm feeling. Like, can we put some effort into here? Do you want to kind of walk through that developer conversation?
Yeah. The forum, for those here who listen to us and have not been there, I would greatly encourage you to go there. It's a lot of active discussions, sometimes heated discussions, but I think that's what it takes in such a community to come to decisions. And that's we of course read, we engage, we write up what the foundation sees as the next things, and often it's also NNS decisions ultimately, what is being released, what is being adopted. So it's not that the foundation just unilaterally decides everything here, but of course we take our stance, present our view, and at the same time really try to listen. We also have a feedback board for developer-related inputs. We prioritize that. We go to a lot of events. We organize hackathons. We collect this feedback. We do retrospectives. We do postmortems when we have a problem. And all of that feeds into this discussion that I mentioned before, and then leads for us to decide what we prioritized first, second, third.
Love it. Yeah, a lot of different ways to get feedback in. I'm putting up a couple of the URLs, so dx.internetcomputer.org, forum.internetcomputer.org, if you want to provide feedback. And then also any socials, X is a great place. LinkedIn is also a great place. One of the things, and Bjorn, I want to get your opinion on this. So one of the things that really attracted me early on to the Internet Computer was the 20-year vision. And I remember Dominic Williams put out a blog post around mainnet launch saying like, the vision is going to take us 20 years to reach. So even though you guys are aggressively constantly just reaching milestone after milestone after milestone, it feels like we're at still the early stages of this journey. And that vision's this idea of a world computer. Can you kind of walk people through what exactly the world computer vision is and like why it's instrumental to what we do in ICP?
Yeah, so I like to think of the world computer as a new compute paradigm that really puts ownership of code and data and everything there is in a computer front and center. So the idea here is if I can put that very physical, like in the physical world, you're used to like you create stuff, whatever you draw a picture, it's yours, right? No one can take it from you. And also like the company that produced the pen doesn't take part of the ownership, like it's yours. If you buy a coffee machine, like you can use it, you can repair it, you can pimp it, whatever you want. Maybe the company goes bankrupt, but you can still like maybe you have a problem sourcing spare parts, but otherwise like it's yours. You can do whatever you want. And if we look at how IT has evolved and how services work today, that's like the exact opposite. Like everything is based on processing in the cloud and storing data in the cloud, and that has very good reasons, right? It's great for efficiency. It's great for upgrades. It's great for backup. Like there's many advantages with this, but you give up a lot. Like you give up a lot of control. So you create things, and then they're stored elsewhere. And if the company that provided you with the software changes their business model, if they go bankrupt, if they whatever you want to stop paying, you lose access to everything you did before, right? So like you don't really have ownership of the things you create. It becomes totally absurd if you read the end user license agreements of social media services. Like they basically own everything you do. They even own your account, right? So the Elon Musk's lawyers in court, they said like, oh, it's not actually that person's account, it's our account, he just has access to it. And they used it in some law case, whatever. So there is, like, this doesn't match. And this is like with all the value of this, like the importance of all the data we have in our lives, like this is a very profound question. Like how do we want this world where everything is digital? How do we want this to function in the future? What level of control do we want to give to people, to individuals? And so the world computer is an answer to this. It's really like, no, you as the one who created this, you should be in control. Like it should be your data. And this cannot work if you build on a centralized platform, because then in the end, like someone owns the centralized platform, someone operates that server, and they can do stuff to that server, they will have to pay for keeping the server up and so forth. This can only work if we build on a decentralized platform. And that's the foundational vision that ICP is built to achieve. But as you mentioned, like we're not there today, right? ICP cannot host everyone's data, everyone's computation today. That's not where we are. That's where we want to be in 15 years, 20 years, whatever. But we're now taking the important steps to get us there so we can have this this notion of individual ownership and control also in this digitized world.
You said it phenomenally, and it's a topic that I constantly hear people maybe don't understand is, like they'll say, oh, ICP is like a faster Ethereum, or, they can do better data storage than Solana. And it's like, well, that's like, we're not here to replace those things. We're actually here to challenge more like big tech cloud. So a decentralized cloud. I always like to say it's Amazon Web Services, but drop off the Amazon. And so,
yeah.
So I'm going to pull up the roadmap, because there's a couple of items on the roadmap that help bring us closer to that vision of the world computer. Like you were saying, we can't host the entire world software and data today. And so let's talk about how we're moving towards that. And the first one is these this flux milestone here about load balancing and increased compute capacity. And I don't know, can you kind of like touch a little bit just on what this milestone entails and why it's important?
Sure. If you want to open it, there's also more details. So in this particular case, these are kind of different. So the first one is an efficiency improvement in the platform that you see here. So it's just there are certain administrative operations the protocol has to do in order to keep its guarantees, and those incur some overhead. And currently, the overhead leads to certain times where the platform operates at a slightly slower speed than it should. And so the first one, for example, is improving the platform toward providing a more continuous level of performance, even when managing large amounts of data. The second one is more like ICP consists of many subnets. So it's a platform that scales horizontally, but single subnets have different levels of load. And so we really need to shift load between those subnets, which ICP does not support today. But the canister migration you see there is exactly this. It's shifting load between different subnodes. And one feature we need for this is then the third one that you see here is canister snapshots, which means basically having a program bundling, serializing the state it has, and so you can put it elsewhere. It has very good side effects for developers. Like developers can take the running software and basically pull such a snapshot also to their local development environment. So that's also included in that feature. But the feature is really about this bundling and then being able to download and upload these bundles. And that enables the migration then, of course.
I love it. So it kind of comes back to like providing developers with the tools that they would expect in a Web 2 environment, but doing it in a Web 3 environment.
Honestly, it's cooler than that, because you can literally you can take a snapshot of the running program, you download the snapshot of the running program. It contains everything the program needs, all the running data of the program, and you can continue with this in your local development environment. I think it's a lot cooler than what you can do with Web 2 technology, actually.
So that's a great point, and maybe a thread that'll kind of go through a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Is it's not just about taking big tech cloud and decentralizing it. It's actually creating an entire new tech stack that can do things that you can't do in the traditional internet, right?
Yes,
yeah, that's true. I mean, we have. We call this serverless compute, right, or serverless architecture. So a lot of the traditional complexity that a traditional stack would give you, like you need to set up an operating system and then add some databases and all of this is kind of abstracted away. And you have this concept of canisters, which are these smart contracts on steroids in a way, right, that can store gigabytes of data and do computation, such as running inference of LLMs, smaller LLMs, to be honest. But this is a quite powerful compute concept. Again, I think Björn is right. Of course, we are not there where the vision wants us to be eventually, but it's already today super impressive what you can do. And this architecture is also the foundation for other things. I guess we'll talk about AI later on, right? This wouldn't be possible with this architecture that hides away a lot of this, or abstracts away some of the complexities you have with the traditional stack.
I love it. Yeah, and I'm seeing in the comments a lot of people asking about AI and caffeine, and we're going to get to that in a second. But we want to establish this idea of the world computer and really a blockchain-backed tech stack that can host significant applications. One thing, so let me scroll down to, I'm going to scroll back through the AI, and we want to talk through like decentralization. Björn, you had mentioned the importance of decentralization. So kind of walk us through what the next major steps are for ICP in this area.
Yeah, so I mean, fundamentally, if you want some level of ownership, then the platform that can host this, where users can have ownership without controlling the infrastructure themselves, this can only work if the platform is decentralized. And also here, in terms of decentralization, ICP today is not where ICP in 20 years will be. So there have been certain parts of the platform, parts of the overall protocol that we just recently decentralized. So the boundary access structure, so which is basically the nodes that know where the data lives, and when the request comes, they route it to the right place. Those were decentralized as part of the recent milestone. And so now, as part of the Levitron milestone, like these nodes will become more useful for developers in terms of data they provide to developers. So if you can open the Levitron maybe, then you see one of the features is about like having a level of anonymized data aggregation. So it improves how developers can get insight into what users do with their applications in a decentralized way. And then the other one is a bit broader, that also entails like the next ways of changing the way how nodes are rewarded to improve the incentivation provided to node providers in terms of keeping the nodes up to date and up and running. But it also includes, for example, like you see the generation 3 node hardware. So how do we want the nodes that run the inner computer to look in the future? So this is really more a bit forward-looking compared to the Levitron milestone I mentioned before.
Seeing
comments that people don't see the shared screen. Is it maybe better for recommending some people to go to X? Maybe on X you can see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think on YouTube it's having trouble showing our shared screen. I haven't seen anyone on X say that. But all we're showing is essentially internetcomputer.org/roadmap. And so if you want to follow along, you can also go here and you'll see the website that we're trying to share our screen. So apologize for the technical issue, but we'll move on. And actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll ask one more question as you're answering. I'll start working on seeing if I can reshare my screen in a different way. But walk us through. So privacy and identity are obviously really important in a decentralized cloud. I think that this is like one of the areas of when I talk to developers, like having a protocol level identity solution, having privacy, being able to offer privacy solutions on the internet computer is always comes up really quickly. Like this is very, very unique and really useful. So walk us through the how like the roadmap in terms of privacy and identity.
Should I maybe, Björn, I say something about privacy and you can say something about identity. So in terms of privacy, there is a few items on the roadmap that I hope developers find interesting. One is VetKD, so that's a kind of key management solution that allows you to encrypt data on the client and then store it in encrypted form on chain. That is interesting and has been long anticipated, and we now actively work on this. And I think within a few months you will see that being available, including some sort of SDK tooling libraries for developers to use that. If people are interested in this, there is even a preview version that doesn't give you the security that the final version will have, but you can see how it works. So that's available today. That's one milestone. That's this Niobium milestone that we see on your screen. And then we have also been long talking about trusted execution environments, or SEV is the specific technology that the machines used on the IC use. And here, this is I mean, we wanted to have this actually a few years back, right, to be honest. But it's very difficult. And so we have spent a lot of resources and time on this already. And so we decided that the next step we want to do is we want to provide integrity for the node state so that you have attestation of the machine that the state has not been compromised with. And we will use trusted execution environment to encrypt or to create confidentiality for some key material, for the key material that is used for the threshold keys. So this is a first step for using trusted execution environment that is ahead of us, that we work towards. And then further out, and I think we have not figured out all the details yet, is to use trusted execution environment for the complete confidentiality of the entire node state. Not sure this is happening this year, but that's our roadmap in terms of privacy, or actually confidentiality. So again, it's this VetKD that is coming out soon, then trusted execution environment for integrity plus the confidentiality of the key shares, and further out the encryption of the entire node state. Yeah, that's what we do in terms of privacy in the months ahead. And maybe with this over to you, Björn, on identity.
Yeah. So the core of identity on the internet computer is, of course, internet identity, which was launched together with the internet computer in May 2021. And so back in the days, we found that the user experience and security provided by many schemes used elsewhere in Web3 weren't that great. Like, you usually have these wallets where you have to keep a seed phrase, and then still technically the key material is in the browser where it's kind of exposed to attacks. So what we did was very different. It was like, we said, no, let's build on web standards, and web authentication, which is now used mostly as passkeys, was very new back in those days. Or we were, I think, the first platform that really embraced passkeys as a primary method of authentication. But things have changed since then, right? This is now 4 years later. It's very widely supported on most devices. It's widely used by many services, and also the standards have evolved. And so for us, we think now it's also time to kind of revisit the internet identity experience, build on new things that are supported in newer standards that we couldn't have been using back in 2021. So we want to really kind of, to some extent, rethink internet identity from a user perspective. There will also include other methods of signing in. Again, we will, internet identity is 100% self-custodial, 100% decentralized. That's our core property we want to preserve. We will, however, support more sign-in mechanisms, for example, wherever possible. So we do think that they're based on on certain variants of the OpenID standard. We can support sign-ins with Web2 services if users decide to use that. That's like a user-by-user decision. So it's overall still keeps the level of decentralization. So that is going to be supported in the future for sign-in providers that do support the necessary cryptography to do this. That's not all of them. And then we want to make the internet identity numbers less visible, because they are kind of an obstacle in the overall flow. We want to make the overall flow less dependent on these numbers, which should be possible based on newer web authentication standard variants. And so there's a lot of these improvements where we can just remove hurdles from the user flow and make it more intuitive and easier to use. So that's the focus for internet identity, at least for the remainder of this year.
I love it because I love going to conferences that aren't even Web3 conferences, and you start talking to people who are very interested in just like improving the traditional internet tech stack. And privacy and identity seem to be two common things that people are concerned about. The internet as a whole is inherently non-private and insecure. And then you hear about you talk to some of these OGs, who really were the thought leaders of the internet in the 1990s. And one of the things they say is it's really a shame we've allowed Google and Apple to kind of control the identity layer of the internet, log in with Google. And so to have something at the platform level that's decentralized is such a key thing. And I think, again, one of the key themes that's going on through this conversation is about the fact that ICP is not just a Web3 tech stack, aiming to just, do traditional blockchain, what we kind of think of as traditional blockchain, but actually it's solving key issues that exist in the internet as a whole. And so one of these, I could not have timed this comment any better, but I'm going to pull up Virak here, who says, when will hosting a website on ICP be a simple, easy process for non-developers, which is the perfect lead into the self-writing internet, which is our next topic for today. So Sam, Dom had a piece in CoinDesk that just went live yesterday, talking about the self-writing internet. So can you kind of walk the viewers through what this idea is and why it's so important?
Of course. Maybe before I answer the question directly, let's just say, if we talk about AI, there is kind of two sub-narratives or sub-stories, right? One is this self-writing internet, sort of building with AI, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment more extensively. We also have this sovereign AI part. So Björn explained to us how sovereignty, digital sovereignty, that we don't want to be in control of what happens with our data and so on. And so that's another part of the AI story that I guess we'll cover later on. But I think it's just important to distinguish these two solutions because it's all about AI, but they're quite different in nature. And of course, at some point they also merge together. But now we start first with this build with AI, or Dom talks about the self-writing internet. So we have this platform that provides sovereignty. We have this serverless architecture that makes it easy to deploy applications. And what is also very attractive, you can actually upgrade from one version to another version without losing the data you have, or without some complicated data migration scripts or solutions processes. And so now here comes all these great LLM capabilities. We all know LLMs are becoming better and better at writing code. And if you now put that all together, you can build a solution that uses these LLM capabilities. We spend effort to improve or refine models to better create Motoko code and to create code that is tailored to this ICP architecture. Then we build and deploy to ICP, and you can interact with an application within a minute or so. You can add data. You don't like the background color, you want to have another field in your table, you go back to the prompt, you write there how you would like this application to change. Your shopping app should also account for that time when you added your item to your shopping cart, right? So you write that, and within seconds you update the app without losing the data that is already in this app. And this is the natural extension of this idea of ICP that extends the internet with sovereign compute and storage. And here comes even a way of building solutions like this. So that's this self-writing internet, and brings this ability and joy of creation and joy of, I guess I went into computer science because I really like to build something, right? And I think it's a joy, and I assume other people have this joy too. And with these AI capabilities, you will bring this joy and capabilities to many more people. Now, vibe coding is the latest, I guess, terminology that is used, or term that is used for this. And I guess this Caffeine will be a huge vibe coding platform that comes additionally with these sovereignty and the ability to evolve a live application, which is something quite unique. So I hope that summarizes a bit what this vision is, or what we aim for.
I loved, a lot of us were in San Francisco at the new Definity offices there a few weeks ago. We did a caffeine hackathon, and just one of the things that I took from it was just the creativity of people who, you have this tool and they were just building, I don't know, random ideas. Like I remember one person created a game like the old asteroid game from the 1980s, but replaced asteroids with emojis. And so like the emoji would blow up and little emojis would form. And it was just a really cool idea of moving on that. So let's dive deeper into caffeine. Like what makes caffeine so unique in like this space?
Yeah, maybe, or Björn, go ahead, Björn.
I think Sam has mentioned the two main differentiators. So I want to dive a bit deeper maybe. The first one is really the ownership aspect. Like you build with caffeine, you can then ask caffeine to provide ownership of this entire stack of the code and data to you. So from that point onward, it's just you being in control. You decide what happens to this. You do not depend on Definity or anyone else for further using and extending your application. So it's really like it's under your control. No one will take your data and your functionality from you. I think that's one of the core differentiators that is brought to you by ICP, the World Computer ICP, the platform that enables this level of ownership. And the other one, and this Sam mentioned that as well, is the ability to upgrade the code, the running code with its data. So if you develop software in a more classical way, where you have some application server that runs the software, you have a database server that holds the data, you may have tons of other components around it, but just upgrading those two is a process that is actually has to be well orchestrated and is a pain point in typical software development and deployment, because you then have to make sure that, you have to migrate the data in your database, but you have to do it in the right order with upgrading the code, and you have to be very careful to not have a huge downtime in this entire process. And so ICP, like what we also mentioned in the context of the snapshots, is like the concept of orthogonal persistence on ICP. So the platform just allows the code to run, and then it will persist the memory of that code. So there is no files that the code has to manage. There's no databases that the code or the administrator or developer or whatever has to manage. It's all in the canister that holds both the code and the data. And so in this context, upgrading the software is an atomic operation. So you upgrade the canister, it's like literally one thing the platform does, and after that, there's a new version of it that runs the new code with, if there needs to be data migrations, with completely migrated data. And the fact that this is a much simpler process enables this to be integrated so that AI can actually do all this thing basically for you. And so this is something like, if you look at existing other stacks that attempt to provide a similar functionality, that generally doesn't work. So this is right now really a unique feature that Caffeine can.
Oh, I think we lost Björn there.
On this ICP platform capability.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if it was me or if it was Bjorn. I think hopefully we haven't. But yeah, just to kind of like double click into that, right? Like these are like the software lifecycle management, the ability to constantly upgrade your application without downtime or data loss, is something I think that's really unique for the ICP tech stack that will be hard to replicate by the more Web 2 equivalents like V0 and Lovable. And so walk us through too, though. One of the things I love about this is this milestone here about actually creating Motoko, like making it easy to fine tune models with Motoko. Walk us through what the rationale is for this.
I mean, if you build, we have now talked about this caffeine solution framework. So there is this part where you write the prompt and you need to turn it into code that is compiles and then runs on ICP. And as many listeners may know, right, there is we compile code to WASM. So the WebAssembly is you can therefore create smart contracts in various languages. Motoko is a language that was created by the foundation. It does not come with a huge set of libraries, but it's very much tailored to the ICP architecture. And therefore, it also, if you take, for example, Rust or other languages, we have done some tests like this. And if you then just use a normal LLM and create a WebAssembly that should run on the IC, typically doesn't work because it assumes it's not aware of the constraints and boundary conditions of the IC. Whereas Motoko, because it's specially designed for the IC, is more suited for this. And so we have spent quite some time creating training sets for LLM refinements or for training our own models. And we have experimented with many different models. And I mean, this is almost like a research project, right? I think we have made some good progress. And we really, if you look at our charts, the numbers have gone up. But we are not really there yet fully. And I think this entire AI journey or self-writing internet journey, if you say, can I build my entire ERP system tomorrow? No, probably not, right? But can I do some fun, quite impressive small applications? Yes, we can do that today. I know we have not released this yet, and I read the comments here on our show, right? Some people say, when is it come? Yes, we work on this. And I mean, I can promise you internally it works. And I think it's not going to be another half a year or a year. It's going to be sooner that there is going to be a wait list. And we really want the first external people to come and play with this. But it's a journey, right? And so that's also a bit the difficulty about building a product like this. If you say, build me the world, then you will always find an example that doesn't work. But if you cannot, it's a kind of glass half full, half empty, and it will be in this middle for a long time. But if you just see the vision and what is already possible today, I think it's quite impressive. And maybe I went a bit off the rail now. Back to your question. I think therefore this training of Motoko and making it build software specifically for the IC and also being able to do the data migration that Björn has just explained, this requires quite some fine tuning, and that's what this milestone is about.
I love it. Kind of all comes back to this idea of decentralization, where, I mean, fine tuning LLMs on Motoko makes it so that caffeine doesn't necessarily have to be the only player in the space, that anyone else could come in and easily plug in and build an app similar or slightly different than caffeine, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to AI on chain. This is an area that I think is really, really exciting. Again, coming back to solving like Web 2 issues around security. So kind of walk us through, Bjorn, maybe the idea behind why we should host AI models on chain. What's the advantage there?
So to some extent, AI is software on steroids. So the problems with software, if you look at AI, they are the same, just even worse, right? And so if you think about, like, AI is going to be super useful in many different things. But for example, I may want to use an AI agent to help me manage my financials or whatever. But like, do I really want to now say, oh, here, OpenAI or Microsoft or Google, here is all my financial data. Can you please run your AI on it and tell me what I should improve? I'm not sure. I mean, there's certainly different levels of data sharing that people are comfortable with. Like, for me, this is like absolutely no-go. And so I think for AI, this comes both to like training the models, to tuning the models, where you want to trust that actually the models have been trained and tuned on actual information. So they actually, if they give me financial advice, that they do this in my best interest, right? And not in the interest of whoever controls the AI, who wants to maybe extract some value out of my financials, my data, or even whatever advice they may be giving me. So I want to have an AI that I can actually trust that it acts in my best interest. And also, I don't want to share my data with every big corporation just because I want to receive this type of service. And so with on-chain AI, where I can have a level of verifiability of computation, a level of verifiability of the code that is impossible to achieve with a typical cloud-based scenario, because who knows what kind of software runs on the cloud, right? There's not much you can do about that. And also with respect to how I can control what happens to my data. So this is where really on-chain AI will make a major difference, in my opinion, in terms of what kinds of use cases may be acceptable for users to use AI for.
Yeah, I love broadening the field of what kind of products can be built with AI. And so walk us through more specifics. I know in the roadmap, and I apologize, I think the sharing my screen was crushing my internet connection. So I think hopefully this gets less lag if I take my screen share off. But walk us through like the idea of like an AI worker and like how that enables builders on ICP to be more efficient.
Yeah, so the AI worker that we have today is not exactly the same of what we generally mean by on-chain AI. So if we think about on-chain AI, the architecture that would be like really the ICP way to do things would be literally having the nodes compute on that data, because then you get all the trust that you get in those. But there's a certain lag in terms of time it takes in order to upgrade all the ICP infrastructure to really provide the necessary capacity to run that on chain. So one thing we did so that the community, like all of us, can start building and trying things out and seeing basically how we want to build this entire ecosystem in the future, is that we introduced the notion of an AI worker, which is a node that is not running the main ICP protocol, but you can use it from the main ICP protocol. So you can write a smart contract on ICP today that calls a specific smart contract that we call the LLM canister, and sends prompts to that canister. And that canister will then make sure that the prompt is going to get answered by an LLM. And in the future, we want to support multiple. I think right now, the main one is Llama, but we want to support multiple from that canister. But the AI worker is really a node that is not an ICP node that just performs the AI task of this. So I think in terms of what a smart contract can do, that is very much the same, because it can just execute a prompt. That's what you want to do when you interact with the LLM, right? Yeah. But in terms of what ownership and privacy guarantees adhere to the data, this is different. So it does go to this worker node, which is not a subnet node.
Maybe I can add here. So I think for developers who are interested in this, you can go now. There is a forum post that explains how to use this first AI worker node. So it's available today, right, to build. And as you mentioned, the interface is a canister interface. So you in your smart contract interact with another smart contract, and behind the scenes, it uses this AI worker. Now, as explained also, it's not as decentralized as we would like it to be eventually. But the next steps, of course, are to think who runs this AI worker node. Right now, it's a machine run by the foundation. But of course, that's not good enough. So eventually, there will be more nodes run by different parties. And then you get to the topic of governance, who controls those nodes, who gives rewards to them. And step by step, you can basically decentralize that. And I think that's also a journey that has just started. But to get the feeling how this works, you can get it today.
I love. So if anyone is scratching their head trying to make sense of all this, I think the easiest way to understand it is the same way that blockchain has reinvented ledgers, right? Why there's a reason why we don't use Google Sheets for our financial ledgers. That's the exact kind of same principles we're bringing to AI, so that you're reducing trust assumptions, you're reducing single points of failure. And so I love it. Talk real quickly about the foundational models. It's part of the ignition milestone, and you kind of already touched around it, but just what are we trying to aim with the foundation, with having tooling available for foundational models?
So we have what we are working on, and what already works, but it's still a bit slow, is like a 1 billion parameter model running fully on chain, which I think also, if you compare this to other blockchains, which are essentially a token ledger, this is completely different world, right? Having a 1 billion model. If you compare it to the biggest, most fancy models out there, it's still fairly small. But that just gives you a point of reference. That's what you can do on chain today. And step by step, of course, we want to increase we have ideas how you could, for example, make matrix multiplications part of the core compute concepts that are available. And on the other hand, we have these AI workers where you can run really kind of state-of-the-art LLMs. And again, this is available today. And so you have the choice, right? So you can say, I want to be really fully on-chain, then smaller models, as mentioned before, or say, I can live with this compromise and I want to have a bigger model, and then you go for the AI worker option. So that's what you have available today, and on both fronts we try to advance what is available.
Yeah, I love that, that idea of just build the app you want to build, and choose the trade-offs that you want to make for accomplishing what you set out to. I just want to give a quick shout out. I got to see the guys at Anakai in Denver this past week, and just want to shout them out, because you mentioned the 1 billion parameter model, and that happened a few days after DeepSeek tanked the global economy for a day or two. They actually got DeepSeek R1 running in a canister on ICP, which is just a phenomenal accomplishment. So they're constantly pushing the boundaries of what ICP is possible. Another area, so talking about ETH Denver, let's talk about multi-chain. And what we're, we've conquered Bitcoin, we've conquered Ethereum integration. Let's go into like Solana integration. What's the idea there, and what can we expect in terms of what will be delivered on ICP?
So Solana integration is by and large would be similar to the Ethereum integration that we have live. So it's basically the capability of calling out from the Ethereum computer now to programs that run on Solana, which includes holding and controlling tokens on Solana. So that benefits both ecosystems, right? These things have the nice property of always helping both. Like in the ICP case, it helps like canisters on ICP, it helps projects on ICP, for example, DeFi projects, because now they can actually control assets that are on Solana. So they can be a native trading of Solana or SPL tokens, like all the coins created on top of Solana on as part of an ICP hosted DEX. So and that's like fully decentralized DEX that allows this multi-chain capability with Ethereum and Bitcoin already there. I mean, we're just building out this network, which especially in DeFi, which is a networking thing, right? Like the network is more than the value of the part. This is really something where we think we like ICP is uniquely capable. This is something we just need to do. On the other hand, it also allows Solana projects to make use of ICP capabilities. So if you compare Solana and ICP, like Solana is pretty fast in terms of transaction processing, but the capacity that it has to allocate to each of these transactions is very small. So it's very simple transactions. It's like financial, pushing a token here and there. And ICP is completely different. Like you can run much more compute-intensive tasks. You can store much more data on ICP than you can Solana. And so this can, of course, also benefit projects that build on Solana if they need to use some bigger part of capacity. Right now, their only choice is, well, put it on Amazon, which is, of course, totally centralized. And so we can give Solana projects that build on Solana also the additional option to decentralize parts of their software stack that are not decentralized today. And so in that sense, such connections always benefit both. So we're super happy to see this moving forward.
Yeah, it's such a phenomenal. So the idea of like a co-processor, which I know Jan is really big on talking about ICP as a co-processor to other blockchains. So I think just to dive deeper into that, and Sam, maybe you can kind of speak on like the vision is that if you're a Solana developer, you don't have to abandon Solana to go on ICP. Or even rewrite your smart contract. You can basically use ICP to accomplish like a data storage layer or an AI layer or whatever it is that you want to expand your product to, correct?
Exactly. And I think it's what Björn has also just mentioned, that these tokens, like Solana is excellent in exchanging tokens very quickly, right? And I mean, they have had huge success, kudos. At the same time, if as also mentioned, if you want your front end, say if you build a wallet that is web-based, not to be hosted in a centralized place, where do you go? And ICP can be the answer to that. Or if you now want to build an AI agent that deals with these tokens, and you don't want this to be running in a place where it's under control of a single entity, again, you could do that on ICP. So you can augment the existing smart contracts or tokens that you have without leaving the chain or network or protocol that you love, and augment it with these additional capabilities in a decentralized fashion. And I think that allows also ICP to step a bit out of the ICP bubble in a way. You interact more with other chains. It's maybe then people discover all the additional great functionalities on ICP. And I think that's what this Chain Fusion brand that was introduced about a year ago, and we had a lot of events, really allowed us to connect and interact with other chains quite a bit. And I think we have seen phenomenal success of projects like Odin.fun, which is just like a dream come true, right? Which shows that we have built the core capabilities, for example, some signature schemes that are necessary to do these tradings or these inscriptions. And this project again, shout out to Bob Bodley, has taken this to the completely next level and kind of built a centralized exchange type experience in a decentralized environment using ICP technology. And most people don't even know it's ICP, and no problem about that, right? But it's great how much this drives new adoption or new people to now live and make some nice trades with ICP as the underlying technology.
Yeah, dream big. Talking about going outside the ICP bubble, one of the things that surprised me when I saw the roadmap release, and I'm assuming it's going to surprise a lot of people, is Dogecoin makes an appearance on the ICP roadmap. What is, just real quickly, what's the rationale there in the thinking?
So the rationale there is that there's like even other blockchains outside of ICP have different levels of capabilities, and Dogecoin is basically at the level of capability of Bitcoin. Right? So there's no smart contract programmability, and chains of this type, of course, benefit a lot more from suddenly getting all this programmability. So as Sam mentioned, there's Odin.fun, which is doing meme coin like trading on Bitcoin. There's Liquidium doing lending. They were Bitcoin focused projects, but building on ICP. But so they really help. It's where really ICP can help other blockchains like Bitcoin to thrive. And we see the same opportunity for Dogecoin. There's no really DogeFi today, right? But I mean, maybe DogeFi becomes a thing in the future. If we support it in such a way, because I mean, in the end, it's a cool, fun project. I think there's community activity, and it feels like a pretty cool match for enhancing what they can do with their chain in order to give them more tools, and hopefully also again the connection between blockchains has this networking effect where if you connect more, everyone gains more. So the ICP can facilitate trading between Doge and Solana and Doge and Ethereum and whatever. So given that Doge is still very similar to Bitcoin, it's not that hard to do for us, right? We have done this for Bitcoin I think, so I'm really proud of our Bitcoin integration. I think it's really a very good and very tight integration. And we can basically do the same level of service for Doge. So I think that's a pretty cool thing, which comes at a reasonable level of complexity and work.
So you heard it here first. 2025 will be the year of DogeFi. And I see in the comments, Dan's correctly predicting that maybe there's a Litecoin integration in the roadmap as well. Not officially in the roadmap, but that is similar architecture. So perfect there. Let's kind of pivot from there to digital assets. We recently had the release of Orbit. Sam, can you kind of walk us through Orbit and what it does and who it's intended for?
Yeah. I think if you look at the roadmap update that we now published, you will find a lot of milestones under digital assets. And I mean, what happened to us, we worked on this roadmap, and in the end, we ended up with all these milestones under digital assets. Like, why is that? But actually, it's a natural consequence of the vision that Björn explained, right? If you say you own it, you're in control, then what are you in control of? The digital assets. And these digital assets are not just tokens or pictures. It may eventually be part of a house. Your identity is a digital asset to some extent. And as a natural consequence, you need places where you can hold them. You need the identity to authenticate that no one else can pretend to be you. And so you need like a wallet or a governance system around it that decides if I now hand over my house to you, Kyle, my partner should maybe also agree to that. And so to do that, we have these kind of governance solutions or frameworks. And if you look at it, we have the NNS, that is the DAO that governs the entire ICP network. Then, like 2 years ago, there was the SNS framework that was launched, and by now a lot of new DAOs and a lot of new communities were created, and it works, and it's quite exciting, but it takes quite something to launch an entire community and an entire DAO. And if now I jump to the button. You are a developer, you control a smart contract. You can black hole it so that it can never change, or you are, as a developer, are in control. But that doesn't really give so much assurance to a user that may want to use this step. So between SNS and a developer controlling a smart contract, we have kind of a gap, right? And this gap is who controls an application before it becomes an entire community that controls it. And Orbit is a framework that allows you to build such solutions. And it's also important to distinguish Orbit has a part that is kind of this general purpose framework. So where you can use it. I encourage community to use it and build other solutions on top of this. So you can say, I do a 4 eyes principle to control my, again, my house that I own, right? And on top, we have built a wallet that is the Orbit wallet. And this is what was launched. And actually, we have seen a lot of adoption already in the first few days, very exciting, where institutions can use this Orbit framework to manage their, say, treasury. Even the Dfinity Foundation itself, right? Our employees, as some part, receive tokens as a part of their compensation. And how do we make these transfers with Orbit, right? So that requires that not just a single person can make these transfers. You want multiple people, say 4 eyes principle or so, that 2 people agree we transfer now some amount to Sam. And this is now available and again, has been quite well received. And maybe, if you allow me to add one more thing, this is also the next step for enterprise, right? This is, of course, interesting for crypto community as we know it, but also if you think of an enterprise that really wants to have higher integrity of your business process or who takes which decisions, and you can track them in a decentralized system, then that's the kind of infrastructure and the kind of tooling you need. And I've seen some questions in the channel about Utopia, right? These are building blocks that are certainly necessary also in such a context, but not only. And I think this is an example where you see some of these building blocks that we build are usable in different shapes and forms, and clearly the ICP ecosystem benefits from this.
And if I may jump in here as well, this is something that is fundamentally impossible on traditional technology. So of course, like also in traditional software, there is like business process management where you have these sign-off processes like, oh, at least 3 people have to put the check mark before whatever, some money can be sent off or anything else. But if you look into more detail, those things run on some server, which may be in the company's data center, it may be in the cloud. Someone administers that server, right? Someone is root on that server. And so there's always somehow in traditional IT, there's always a single point of control that you cannot remove from the system without stepping to a completely different paradigm. And so that's what ICP does. And like in Orbit is literally the entire Orbit stack is self-sufficient in terms of control. So if you want to have your entire Orbit stack controlled by a like 5 out of 10 multi-signature type of approval, sure, you can do that. There is not a single admin sitting anywhere across the entire stack. So this is really thinking what this business process modeling and whatever is, thinking this through to the end and providing the first actual implementation end-to-end that enables organizations to not be prone to insider attacks, right? So this is actually, the value proposition here is also to avoid insider attacks, which are always a problem if there is certain people in an organization that actually have a higher level of access than they should have, just because it's not possible to do otherwise.
Yeah, I think just to drive that point home, I've come from more of a traditional IT background in parts of my career, and that fact that there's always just a root level admin on every single IT system is a multi-trillion-dollar liability, and it's the root cause of almost the entire cybersecurity economy that we have now. So, I mean, solving just like a legit problem that we have within Web 2, and that every single CIO is sitting here banging their head and hiring tons of CISOs to solve. We're going to land this plane and wrap it up, but there's definitely a thread here one, like, just if we zoom back out and kind of look at the internet computer over its, through almost coming up on 4-year journey since mainnet, there's definitely a thread of protocol development moving more towards like removing like direct like friction points within the tech stack, and becoming more focused on like not just building a protocol and letting other people figure out what it's used for, but being intentional about how we can solve real world problems, not just in Web3, but also in traditional internet. Kind of walk us through that, like reflect back, if you don't mind, on your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think you are spot on. This is a shift that has happened or is happening, and I think also the community notices this, right? We have started out, around launch, it was really all about launching this protocol, and of course there were some core services like internet identity that were necessary, and there were some of them were built in a rush to have an MVP out there, right? And I think we have seen a lot of great project building on top of this, but in the last few months and years or a year, we also realized, well, there is still a lot of friction. We have not spoken so much today about developer experience, but that's another area where some things are really hard, right? It's possible, and brave people have managed, but it should be easier, especially if we want to onboard the next thousands of developers. And so that's why we have really made a shift to not only work on the core protocol, but also on how do we remove friction. We spoke about internet identity. I just mentioned developer experience. And in some areas like Orbit, we have built a product, right? Which is even a step more. Now, why do we do that? Such a product like Orbit. I think we eat our own dog food, right? So we learn, we improve, and it's a demo case of what is possible. Like the story Björn just explained of, you can really have an admin-less business process tool here. It's powerful, right? And so we do that to learn and to demo. At the same time, I just also here want to acknowledge, at some times this leads to a competition, right? We have a community that sometimes feels, oh, why is the foundation now doing this? And it's certainly not our goal to alienate the entire community. That's not the goal. The community is clearly important. And I think we see organic projects like Odin we mentioned, wonderful, right? Then we have other projects where we give funds, or for example, ASL is a TypeScript-based canister development kit, which will potentially reach version 1 this year. A super great project funded or co-founded by the foundation. And then we have collaborations, such as we have done a recycling credit project that we could present and got us into the real world asset world a year ago. And then we build our own products like Orbit. And this, I think it's the natural way of how things develop. I just here want to acknowledge sometimes this creates tension, but it's certainly not the goal of the foundation to create a big fight with the entire community. Yeah, but I hope that explains a bit why we do what we do.
Yeah, I love it. Any closing thoughts that you guys want to end on? Any wish list from you?
The most important one is, as we started out, like with the idea that we're on a 20-year roadmap. I think what we've discussed today, these are the next steps on that roadmap. I'm super excited about every single step that we've been mentioning. I think we're going to make huge steps forward this year. But if you put it in the bigger picture, like, it's still not the end, right? We're not going to be finished. So whatever we've been discussing today as like the steps for the next year, take this as the first path of the way that we want to go over the next 15, 20, however many years, but that order of magnitude.
And I would like to end to say a shout out to our team, because we have, what we have accomplished and the ambitious goal we now set going forward wouldn't be possible with our team, but also a shout out to community, because a lot of feedback that we receive. We have had, I just remember here is from Nashville last year, a hat that we had. So many great conversations there. Just we have all these events, meeting all our community, gives us a lot of energy, gives us a lot of valuable input. So big thank you, I guess, for all of that then results in such a roadmap.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, 100%. Love our community, love the folks at Dfinity, some of just the most outstanding minds in the space. And so Sam and Bjorn, let me thank you guys for your dedication to the vision and for joining me on this live space. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on a 20-year vision. We're approaching year 4. So buckle in. We got a long way to go. I thank you for spending time with us today, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.